What's up, everybody? Robbie Falk here from Maroon and White Daily. Uh, Mustache and all is here. I decided to go with mustache. I like to change it up on everybody from time to time. We'll go with handlebars. We'll go with the regular trash stash. We'll go with a beard. I just want to keep you guys on your toes. So appreciate you guys joining me. Those that are here, those that are watching back that didn't get a chance to join, come join us next time. Sometimes I just throw this together, and I apologize for that. But it's just whenever I have time to do it on Mondays, I try to do it. So I apologize for kind of throwing it together about 30 minutes ago, but here we are. I want to remind you, if you are kind of late to the party or whatever on this, you can always go back and watch it. When we get done, this is going to be able to be watched in full, I believe. So you can always go back and watch it if you miss any questions or whatever. And if you have to leave for whatever reason during this, like I said, you can go back and watch it. So I want to remind you too, if you aren't subscribed to this channel, what are you doing? Please subscribe. We'd love to have you. We've had some great numbers over the last few months since we started this thing up, trying to get us to 1,000 subscribers. We're over 500, which is a good start. And it's thanks to a lot of you guys. So if you aren't subscribed, please go do that for me. It costs you nothing. You'll just basically be notified every time I post a video, and that includes press conferences, media availability, some reaction videos, some Talkin Dawgs videos that I film in advance. That's not these live sessions that we have, but one of the perks is that you do get notified when something like this happens. So we would love to have you subscribe to this YouTube channel if you can, and I'd appreciate it. Also, we got a chat box over on the right side. Put your comments in there, put your questions, anything you want to say in there within reason. We'll be happy to talk about it, even if it's not Mississippi State related. We'll talk about it. So we're going to discuss for the second straight week Mississippi State football recruiting. How many times at this point in the summer have we discussed Mississippi State football recruiting doing some big things? It's happened a lot. It's happened a lot over the years. Mississippi State has made their hay for the most part in the summer since Dan Mullen was here. And most of the coaches that have come through, the summer has been a big part of their recruiting class and setting the stage or even building the class. And I think for Mississippi State this year, it's pretty evident they wanted to build this class here in the summer. 17 commitments now for the Bulldogs. They're almost to 20 commitments by June 24th. It's not the most I think I've ever seen in the summer. Dan Mullen had a class or two that I think he might have gotten to 20. But it's the most we've seen in a while, I think, at Mississippi State. 17 at this point. And the bulk of that has come the last 2 weeks, and there's still more that could be on the way for Jeff Lebby. The impressive thing about this is 14 of these commitments have come in 2 weeks. You had 4 commitments coming into last week's official visits, not last week, the week before those official visits. You lost a punter in Jack Richardson, who's a really good punter at Madison Central, punter and kicker. So you lost him. So basically 3 guys remain that were committed before 2 weeks ago. So essentially you have added 14 players out of 17 in the last 2 weeks. That's impressive. And even more impressive is when you look at the groups that they've brought in the last 2 weeks. The bulk of the group either was committed to Mississippi State or is now committed or will be committed. So the hit percentage on these visits that they've gotten in these past 2 weeks has been outstanding for Jeff Lebby. And I think a lot of that is the fact that they are doing a great job selling Mississippi State and building relationships on these visits. I think the layout of the visits is really cool. Paul Jones and myself have talked to the majority of these guys. There's been 2 or 3 that we haven't been able to talk to at this point, but I've been helping Paul out the last 2 weeks. He is our recruiting guru. If you are not a member of Maroon and White Daily, I encourage you to come check us out because every single one of these guys, Paul has updated at some point before they get on this visit. They are no stranger for Mississippi State fans. Mississippi State fans know who these people are because Paul Jones tells them who they are. He is the best in the business at Mississippi State when it comes to recruiting. And that's proven day in and day out with what he does on the message board, his articles. Nobody outworks him. He's the best. So please come join us. If you want to find out about these guys before they commit to Mississippi State, you want to be with us. And I think it costs $1 right now for the first month. If you want to come check us out, it's really no reason for you not to come see us. But back to what I was saying, we talk to these kids and they really break it down to us just how cool these visits have been for them. And there might be some people that, scoff at it, at some of the things that they're doing. And, they talk about it's cheesy or whatever, but you're trying to impress, 17, 18-year-old kids, and you're trying to have fun with the kids. And that's what they're doing. These kids love it. They have a scavenger hunt that ends with with everybody coming back to the stadium. I think they've had kind of like a carnival type setup at the stadium with a dunking booth and some food trucks and things like that. The kids love that. They love going to Jeff Lebby's house, swimming in the pool, playing basketball, hanging out with other players and things like that. And the relationships is what these guys have talked about the most. The relationships they have with the coaching staff, with the players on campus, and then even, some of the recruits that they've gotten. So even if they haven't gotten commitments from some guys, they've really left an impression on some of these players that haven't committed yet. And that's the most important thing. When you look at this past weekend, Mississippi State had 9, I think, commitments last week. I'll have to do the math on that. But this week, you had commitments already on campus in Kamario Taylor, A.J. Rice, and Tyshawn Willis, which are 3 guys that have been committed. They were, I think, State's first 3 commitments. They've been committed, and they did a lot of recruiting this weekend. You follow that up, you get a commitment from Jerron Johnson, running back out of Tennessee. His teammate, Austin Howard, who's a linebacker, Vanderbilt commitment. He flips to Mississippi State. Mario Nash was a big win from Kemper County. You got a commitment from 2 wide receivers, Davion Jackson and Ferzell Shepard from Louisiana. So 5 commitments this weekend. And that would make 9 last weekend. So impressive, just a really impressive job. 14 now, and that's you have the 5 already, plus the 3 that you had. That's 8 commitments that were on campus this weekend, and then a couple more, 2 or 3 more that could commit. The percentage that they're hitting on right now with these visits is really high. That's good news. They're doing something right. So let's do like a little timeline of what happened this weekend, just like we did last week. So started on Saturday night, and it was the same thing as last week. You have a commitment with a guy basically committing on Instagram, Davion Jackson. He committed on Instagram during the photo shoot, and I think probably, several of these other commitments probably did it that night as well. So Davion Jackson commits, and the next to commit, I believe, was publicly was Mario Nash, which was a surprise for a lot of people, especially, early in the morning on Sunday. Hardly anybody outside of the coach's office felt like he was about to commit, but he does. And that's a monster get, probably, outside of Kamario Taylor, probably State's biggest get of the class at this point. He was a kid that, let me pull up his offer sheet because it got impressive. Alabama, LSU, just got offered, I think, by Ohio State. This kid was really blowing up. And, you look at where he's been so far. Took an official visit to Ole Miss, took an official visit to LSU. He's got one coming up, supposed to be this year, with Florida State. I don't know if that'll stick or not, but this kid's been all over the country at this point. And actually, it looks like he No, that is set for October, I think. Took an unofficial to Ohio State the other day. The offer sheet is just it's who's who at this point. Florida State, LSU, Alabama, Clemson, Florida, Ohio State, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Miami, Auburn, Oregon, USC, Michigan, Penn State, Kentucky, Missouri. It's he really started to rack them up. Maryland, Purdue. State was one of the first ones to offer him, and they've been on him from the start. The last staff was really on him hard. Cody Kennedy's kind of taken it to the next level, and that's a big get. That's a guy that, like I said, most everybody in the country wants right down the road in Kipper County. I just didn't feel like he was going to make a big move out of state. Maybe LSU, maybe Alabama, but not a long distance kind of guy, I don't think. So Mario Nash commits. That was a monster commitment. I still don't understand why it hasn't gotten more play nationally, but he has kind of gone quiet here in the last couple of days. He's not really taking phone calls, so that could be the reason why. So you follow that up. I can't remember exactly the timeline, but I think Jerron Johnson and Ferzell Shepard were somewhere around each other. Davion Jackson and Ferzell Shepard, similar kind of athletes in that they're both just world-class kind of athletic specimens. Davion Jackson, a speedy kid, 6'2", 185, great route runner, can really fly, adds to your group from a speed perspective. And then when you talk about Ferzell Shepard, he's a guy that could probably play either side of the ball. It looks like he's going to play offense and wide receiver. Straight out of Baton Rouge. Doesn't look like LSU is giving him a lot of interest. And that's always the first thing that people say when Mississippi State gets a Louisiana kid is, do we have to worry about LSU? You always have to worry about LSU with Louisiana kids. Always. If they want them, it's going to be difficult to get them. But it doesn't appear that they're high on LSU's list right now. So it's just pointless to worry about it. But Ferzell Shepard is a state champion long jump guy, can leap out of a gym, tremendous athleticism. I think both of these guys have a ton of potential. So it wouldn't shock me to see either one of those guys making a difference at Mississippi State. And then Jerron Johnson, you get two running backs the last 2 weeks that really improve your skill set at that position. Colin Wilson flipped from Cincinnati last week. Love this kid. I think he's a future starter for Mississippi State in the backfield. He's kind of what you're wanting out of a guy like, Seth Davis, that explosive running back in the backfield that can really take, a carry up the middle that a normal player might get 6-7 yards and turn it into a 60-70 yard touchdown. That's the kind of player he is. And really kind of the same thing for Jerron Johnson. Both these guys are home run hitters. One of them comes from Gulf Shores, a great program there in South Alabama, coached by Mark Hudspeth, who was at Mississippi State, former ULL coach, Winston County native, obviously. I got to plug that. So he's in one of the more impressive programs in the state at Gulf Shores. That program's run like a college program. It will remind you of a lot of programs like in Georgia that are really ahead of the game on developing players. These are college coaches, basically, at Gulf Shores that are coaching these players. So he's in a great spot from a developmental standpoint. And I was really impressed with Colin Wilson when I talked to him last week, and the maturity level that he is. I think he's got a chance to be a good one. And Jerron Johnson coming out of Memphis, we know the talent level that they have in Memphis. I think this is two really good gets at running back. After that, Austin Howard flipped. We mentioned him, a teammate of Jerron Johnson. He's committed to Vanderbilt. Family's very high on academics. That was a tough pull for Mississippi State, but that tells you how good the visit was to be able to get him. I like what Coleman Hutzler's doing at linebacker. A.J. Rice, Tyshawn Willis, Austin Howard now. The linebacker position looks really good. And I saw A.J. Rice and Tyshawn Willis up close and personal this week. Those guys are really impressive from a stature standpoint. 6'1", both of them, about 230. If they get up to 250, wouldn't shock me to see one of them put their hand on the ground, but we'll see where that goes. And then Austin Howard's an impressive guy too, 6'3", 225. Really like the linebacker position right now. So that's kind of where that stands. And then you have Kevin Otis is still out there, Tyler Miller, two big prospects from Mississippi State. Kevin Otis, of course, getting recruited by LSU and A&M, four-star defensive lineman out of Hattiesburg. Tyler Miller is an LSU commitment. There's Mississippi State's trying to stack some Laurel offensive linemen here. You have Malik Ellis, and then before him was Charles Cross. Both of those guys are hitting up Tyler Miller hard, trying to get him to follow that pipeline. I think State's going to make it interesting. We'll see where things go with him. I don't foresee him making a decision on whether or not he'll flip from LSU right now, but I think State's going to continue to be in his ear, and we've seen some really good progress there in recent weeks. I thought State stood in good position with him until he committed to LSU, but they have some work to do there. But I think Cody Kennedy's done a good job. Tyler Lockhart was in town. Of course, he has a brother, TJ Lockhart, who's already on campus with Mississippi State from Winona. He had kind of a surprising commitment to Auburn back in the spring, but I think State is definitely going to make a push for him and have a shot. Also, Cortez Thomas from Holmes County Central, another place that has a pipeline to Mississippi State. I think Ole Miss is in the game with him, but I think State did a good job with him this weekend. We'll see what they're able to do with him. Some other guys that visited over the weekend, let's take a look. Devin Ferris out of Heights, Texas, big kid. Paul talked to him. I think State did a good job with him. I don't know if they're pushing for his commitment right now. Ramondo Johnson was also on campus, a West Virginia commitment, and also cornerback Mason Dunn. Neither one of those guys wanted to talk to us, so I think they really didn't want to publicize too much their visit with them being committed elsewhere. So we will we'll keep tabs on them. Again, make sure you're plugged in over there at Maroon and White Daily. Paul is on top of this stuff, and you're going to want to check all that information out. We have stories on a lot of these guys already up, so come check out what we got. All right, that's enough of me talking. I did enough talking with that. Let's take a few questions and comments. Kobe Walker starts us off as usual, saying we're missing out on some baseball transfers. Yeah, they got a lot of work to do on the baseball portal. They've been able to get 4 guys in, but I still think they need a couple of impact bats, and they really need 2 or 3 impact arms as well. Also from Kobe, do you think we're in good shape with Cortez Thomas? Yeah, I think they're in solid shape with him. We'll see how it transpires. I want to see, what he does over the next couple of weeks. If he doesn't commit, I think it might be a battle with Ole Miss. If he does commit, then I like State's chances of holding on to him. Titans fans Central, if State fails to even make the SEC tournament 2 seasons in a row, is it a fair argument to say that making a super regional third year is the minimum that has to be done for a coach to stay? I don't know what my opinion is on that. Before the season, mostly what I said was that I think that the decision by Mississippi State would be to keep Chrysomonas, which is what we're talking about here. State was going to keep Chrysomonas if they made progress. And I can see both sides of the argument from a fan's perspective. From one side, you're showing progress. And I think that's where I lean is if you're showing marked progress and it looks like you're going in the right direction, then I think that if you've already decided to bring the coach back, I think that you see it through. I don't think that firing Chris Lemonis after he hired a pitching coach that made that drastic of a change with the team, and you saw the team go from not making the SEC tournament twice in a row to being in the discussion for hosting a regional. I don't think I could say that you have to get it to super regional to keep your job, because if that's the precedent, what if Chris Lemonis took Mississippi State the number one this year, the number one overall seed, and they just happen to have a bad weekend and they don't make it out of the regional? Once you get in postseason play, it's kind of tough. Circumstances change. Baseball is a weird game. It's really difficult. So Arkansas had a great season this year, and they don't make it out of their own regional. I can't say that it was a failure of a season, but you just didn't reach your goals. So I think it's fair that Chris Lemonis got another year because you decided to keep him after last season. I can understand the argument more if you were arguing whether or not he should have been fired after 2 years of that. I could understand that decision a little more. Firing him after he's made that much progress, I don't think makes a ton of sense. But at the same time, I get why people are upset that he's put himself in this situation. It's Chris Lemonis that's the head coach. They shouldn't have been in the situation where they're missing 2 SEC tournaments and they're having to claw back like this. So I see both sides. Bryce Hall says that none of the baseball portal guys make me feel too good. Here's what I'll say about this is we talked about it on the podcast today, so you guys can listen to it tomorrow where we kind of delve into it a little more. But I have no problem with any of these 4 players that they've taken at this point. I don't think that any of them are bad players. I don't think they're terrible takes by Mississippi State. I think to this point, all 4 of them have gotten recruited by other SEC schools and good ones too. So, to me, it doesn't really bother me that they've taken them. My issue will be if these are the 4 guys that you take offensively and you've added no real impact bats or defenders out of the portal that are going to help you next year. I don't know how much these guys help you move the needle if they are the ones you're relying on. And I don't mean to diminish anything that they've done. Like I said, I have no issue with taking these players, but you've got to add some pop, some guys that are going to be true impact bats to this, because the way I look at these guys is when I look at their stats, it looks like Mississippi State, Jake Gautreaux, and Chris Lemonis are trying to get players that are going to get on base a little more, that are not going to strike out as much, that are going to bat a little more at the plate. And that's quite frankly what they've needed. They need players like that. But you also need some Hunter Hines type hitters, some Dakota Jordan, some guys that can really drive it out of the yard when these guys are on base. You don't want to load up the bases with singles or walks or whatever, and then, get a ground ball and you just get one out of, a run out of it or something. I think you need some guys that can really drive in some runs. So I'm looking for, if they can get another couple of guys here that are true impact players, which they missed on one in Kyle Jones already. If you can get a couple of true impact hitters in this lineup to go with this, I think it changes the whole direction of the conversation. I don't think anybody should be upset at the portal class if they're able to do that. But we have no reason to believe that they're able to do that just yet. So that's what we're kind of waiting on. Also, a lot is really riding, I think, on is David Mershon coming back, which I'm hearing good things about that right now. I don't think there's anything set in stone at this point, but I really like what I'm hearing about the possibilities of David Mershon coming back, which really changes the conversation. And then that's taken to another level. If you're able to get Dante Nori in, who might be next season the most talented outfielder in the freshman class, if he's able to get to school, that's how good he is. I think what could hurt him as far as his draft stock is concerned is the fact that he's going to be 20 years old here in a couple months. So before he even steps on the field, I think he's going to be 20. And in 2 years, he'll be draft eligible again, which, the stock is totally different with him as a draft eligible sophomore than it is as a high school guy that's 19, about to be 20. And basically they value the younger high school players a little more than they do these guys that are going to be 20 years old. And then they value these draft eligible sophomores a lot more than an older junior or senior. So you get those two guys to campus, I think it looks a lot different in how you're mapping out this season for Mississippi State. But I would feel a lot better if they're able to add one or two more guys there. And in the pitching, it's a total unknown at this point. They don't have anybody out of the portal. Noah Sullivan's a two-way guy, and I think they're going to give him a chance to pitch some. But that's not a guy that really moves the needle for you as like a weekend starter. So they've got to find a way to add some impact arms and maybe an impact bat or two to really change the conversation here. Roro said the commitments were so fire it has Ole Miss players decommitting. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there with Ole Miss. They've had three guys, I think, decommit, 3 4-stars. One of the guys, I think, was a 5-star, 2 wide receivers and defensive ends. I don't know. I have no clue what's going on. I've always wondered how much longer Ole Miss could convince some of these like impact high school players to come when they're taking so many transfers. Eventually, that's going to hurt you. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I feel like eventually the word's going to get out. It's going to be tougher to get on the field because of the way they attack the portals. I think that's kind of a double-edged sword for some people. So far, they've done a pretty good job. I mean, hit at a pretty high percentage last year, I thought, in their high school class, and they were the looks of this class was pretty good too, with the amount of 4-stars in it. So I really don't know what's transpiring there. Drew, the whole staff at Gulf Shores are college guys. Yeah, I've heard. I talk a lot to people connected to Coach Hood. I've known him most of my life, and I hadn't talked to him in a while. I wanted to catch up with him to talk about Colin Wilson, but I've heard that it's a requirement. I may be wrong on this, and the person that told me might be wrong, but I've heard it's a requirement to have college coaching experience to be on that staff. He runs that thing like a college program. Really impressive. Justin Tidwell, do we have a dog in the fight with Andrew Maddox? No, he was Ole Miss bound all the way. Mason Welch, who has had the best catfish on the catfish tour. Still early, man. This is only our second trip. This will be our third this weekend, or this week, Thursday, when we go to Fannin Mart and Flowood. If you're a Bulldog fan in Flowood, come see us, or anywhere in the Jackson area. I mean, it's not a bad drive if you're around there. Come check us out Thursday around 11 a.m. We'll be at Fannin Mart. Heard good things about that place. Catfish Cabin was amazing the other day. We went to in Boyle. They had just an old school country buffet, which I love. We have a couple of those around here, obviously. You can't beat a good old country buffet, but that place was packed within like 10 minutes of opening. And they had some amazing ribs, amazing catfish, corn on the cob, sweet potato casserole, fried okra, spaghetti, rolls, German chocolate cake. Place was nuts. And they also had some salad bar as well. So that place was great. And then obviously week 1 went to Obie's. You can't go wrong with Obie's catfish. All these places, the catfish taste about the same to me, and it's all great because of the consistency of the product that Superior Catfish puts out. So they've all been good. Last year, one of my personal favorites was Seafood Junction in Algoma. If you're able in North Mississippi, go check that place out. They got one in Algoma, and I think they got one in Byhalia as well. So you need to go see that. That is a buffet. That's a legit buffet right there. Bryce, how big do you think the recruiting class will be for football this year? I don't know. I haven't really crunched the numbers. I'm not real sure. I mean, I imagine, 25 plus. It looks like that Lebby still wants to build this recruiting class every year, just about, and not go super heavy in the portal. I think they're going to fill their their holes with the portal, but I don't think that this is going to be like an Ole Miss situation where Jeff Lebby wants to go that heavy in the transfer portal. I think he's going to be a little more balanced and maybe even lean more towards high school and JUCO recruiting, which I don't know what the right answer is on this. It's still kind of early. I mean, if you can get impact players at certain positions, you need to focus on the transfer portal more. But I wouldn't rely so heavily on it that you're living and dying by it. And it's also kind of an issue for your younger guys. They're not getting on the field. They're not developing. I think it's a lot tougher to develop players when you're focused on just bringing guys in every year and you're constantly turning over the roster. So I don't know what the answer is on that, but it looks like he's probably going to put 25 guys or so in this class and go from there. Mason, where do you see this class finishing up in the rankings? It really depends on where a lot of these players get ranked. I mean, Cavante Henry is not ranked currently. I think that's a 4-star player. And it really just depends. JUCO guys hardly ever get the benefit of the doubt. They hardly ever get a great ranking. And, I mean, you don't see a ton of them ranked as 4 stars, especially not in Mississippi State's classes. So I'm very skeptical of where they put his ranking, but I think that dude is a 4-star all the way. And then you have 4-star commitments from Kamario Taylor, Mario Nash, and Tyshawn Willis. The other, several of the guys are ranked, but there's also several that aren't at this point. State on 3, I think Charles Power is going to start ranking state guys this week, but Davion Jackson's not ranked. LaKavion Jackson's not ranked. Christopher Johnson, LaKendrick James. I mentioned Henry's not. Jerron Johnson's not. Darian Horsley's not. Sekou Smith. Ton of guys, ton of work to do here. I mean, it's basically over half the class is not ranked at this point. So we'll see where they all fall. And I mean, they're not ranked at this point. State's 43rd nationally with the on 3 industry rankings. So I'm intrigued to see where they fall when all that gets adjusted. I imagine they'll be inside the top 30 for sure on those industry rankings. I think 247 has them 15th right now, so that's good. They have everybody ranked. We'll see from there. I think it's got a chance to be a top 25 class for sure. Bryce, any news on men and women basketball recruiting? I saw a couple of guys coming in on visits for Mississippi State, the men's side. That's Paul's deal, so I don't really spend a lot of time on it other than just kind of watching what he has to say on the subject. But that's happening. And then, Sam Purcell was in Columbia last week, I believe, watching the FIBA Americas, I think. He had an official visitor a couple weeks ago, Tiana Chambers, who's a top 50 player nationally, rising prospect for a lot of the networks out there that cover women's basketball recruiting and give those rankings. She announced on Monday a top 2 of State and Alabama. So State's battling Christy Curry over there at Alabama for her, and would be a really good get, I think, to start off this class for Sam Purcell. Drew missed the first part of the live, but is it going to be a struggle to keep Mario Nash in the boat? I think he's locked in. I think that's why he decided to commit. What we heard up to last week was it's hard to imagine Mario Nash shutting it down just because he loved recruiting so much. But I have to wonder if he shut it down for that reason, is that he was just kind of, burn out from it all. You take all these visits, and at some point you get to the point where you're kind of ready to end it all and get ready for the season. And I've always felt like Mario Nash would end up in this class. I've never really wavered on that in my personal opinion in my mind. And I've hardly ever talked to the kid. I just talking to people, knowing, kind of how he is and how close he is to his family, how much of a homebody he seems to be, and the relationship that he has with Cody Kennedy, and just kind of the general makeup of the kid. He just really fits at Mississippi State. That's always kind of been the place where I saw him ending up. So wasn't a surprise to see him commit to Mississippi State. It was just kind of a surprise to see it now. So I don't really foresee any issues there in his recruitment. You never know, but a guy that I've always felt would end up in this class, kind of like Kamario Taylor, I just don't see a lot of issues there. Justin needed a catfish tour to make a trip to Seafood Junction in Byhalia so you can see us. Yeah, I wanted to go there this year. I think everybody decided to try some new restaurants. I think next year we would love to come to Byhalia and check that Seafood Junction out. Um, and if not, then I'm going to have to come check it out myself. There's been several times where I've wanted to just drive up to Algoma and go to that one. Not a bad drive, probably about an hour 15 from where I'm at. So I got to get back up there. Kobe, what do you think about the 2026 guys we got? I like them. I don't know much about this is Iverson. Let me pull him up. Iverson McCoy. I don't know much about him, but I watched Tupelo last year twice and saw him the year before too. The talent level at Tupelo is really high right now, and it's always been pretty good. But this stretch here for Ty Harden is really impressive. The guys that they're producing here, JJ Hill, I watched last year, and he's a bowling ball. He is just an absolute load to try to tackle. 6 foot 220. When he gets going downhill, he's a tough cookie, and was picking up some really big interest here in the last few weeks. I wasn't really sure where he was going to commit, if it's going to be Mississippi State or not, but this is where it is. Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, A&M, Wisconsin, Stanford. Ton of big offers early for him. So this is a really good get for Mississippi State, I think, at running back. And I could definitely foresee him being what they're looking for as far as like the bruising back, because I think they want a couple of different kind of backs. And, we've seen that from Jeff Lebby at his previous stops. You want that guy that's the home run hitter, and then you want the guy that's going to be able to carry the load in between the tackles. And I think J.J. Hill definitely has that ability. Kenny Darby, anytime an out-of-state guy commits early, I always question whether or not it's going to stick. This kid's not done getting offers. I think he's going to be a really good receiver, 6 foot 175. And, I trust Chad Bumpus to hold that down and keep kids committed. But it's just hard to imagine if he keeps picking up offers that he's going to be interested in keeping that commitment. That's just the nature of it with these guys that commit early in the process. They get really excited about it, and the percentage of those guys that stick is extremely low. So I'll just wait and see on him, but I think he's going to be pretty good from Airline High School in Bossier City down there, and I think outside of Shreveport. Cowboy Mania, what are your thoughts on all these Ole Miss guys decommitting? I don't know. I don't know what the word is on that. I don't know anything about the players. I just saw it a while ago that they had their third guy decommit. Mentioned a few minutes ago, I have to wonder sometimes if it's, guys that it's kind of like what I just mentioned with Darby, like they commit early and they just want to open things back up. I know Kylan Deere's looking around. He's visited Alabama. So it wouldn't shock me to see him open things back up. But you got, Mason Dunn just visited Mississippi State. So a lot of these kids just want to look around and see what their options are. Could be that. Could be what I mentioned earlier about, kids figuring out that Ole Miss is going to take transfers. high school guys are, their chances of playing are growing more slim. I don't know. That's just a thought that I put into the universe. Drew, how many bottles of Tylenol have you been through from the combination of the basketball and baseball portal threads? It's been pretty wild. I mean, our site right now is popping on these threads. I mean, our message board is has been really impressive. This baseball portal thread has 251,000 views. I think the basketball one was well over 500,000, and it's just like constant conversation in there. I mean, people are really passionate about it, and the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows is pretty wild. The message board is not for the faint at heart. If you're somebody that doesn't like the negativity or the back and forth and things like that, you do not need to get on a message board. But we would still love to have you at Maroon and White Daily. You don't have to read the message boards if you don't want to. You can just read the articles. We take those subscribers as well. We would love to have you over there. So come check us out. You guys got any more questions? I'm glad we're able to do this here in the summer. I kind of missed doing this a little bit. So I'm really happy that there's been some news so we can get back on here and talk. All right, we'll cut it there then. We'll be back. I don't know when. I mean, maybe next week. We'll see what happens. If there's some news to talk about, we'll do it. If not, then we'll get back at some point. I'll just let you guys know. Follow me on Twitter if you aren't already. Robbie Falk on 3. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. We would greatly appreciate it, and we would greatly appreciate you come checking us out at Maroon and White Daily. Let me get. I got a deal for you guys. Let me pull that up for you, so you can kind of get a good idea of what we got in store. If I can find it. It's $1 for the first month. I know. I'm just trying to find it here. I'll find it somewhere. $1 for the first month for sure, and eventually, obviously, that's going to go up. So if you do that deal, know that. But great deal, and this is the time to hit it. There's still a ton of news coming in as far as recruiting is concerned. Check us out. If you don't like it, cancel, and we'll help you cancel if you can't do that. But I promise you're probably going to like it. So come check us out and join the community where we've had tremendous numbers over our first half of a year that we've been on 3. We love it there. We love the community we have of Mississippi State fans, and we'd love for you to be part of it. So come see us. All right, y'all. Great. Have a great rest of the week. Appreciate you. Catch you down the road.